Chapter 4. Spiral Staircase.
I don't know about this, Noah, said Andre doubtfully. That's pretty high. And we just got through saying how old this place is. What if it's not safe? We'll be careful, Noah countered. It's probably fine. And I mean, look at this place. It was built to last. Andre seemed to agree with him on that point, at least, and nodded, reluctantly, catching Oakley's gaze. But Noah, remember, you told Aunt Renee we'd stay out of trouble, she said. Climbing a lighthouse wasn't getting into trouble, at least not in Noah's opinion. They'd just climbed one yesterday at Mariner's Point. They were already familiar with the ins and outs of these things. Well, how about if I go first? We've come this far, guys. We want to see if that light was really beaming light from out here last night, don't we? Andre and Oakley exchanged an uncertain glance. Finally, his sister nodded. Okay, I'll admit, this place is a bit more intimidating than I expected. She looked at Andre. But yes, I really want to know what that light was. And if going up there can tell us anything, then we should go. She turned to Noah. But first, let's see if we can even get in before we get too excited. Because I'm not breaking and entering, even in a broken down place like this. Noah studied her face. Fair enough. Oakley nodded at him, then headed for the door at the base of the lighthouse. She turned around, lifting her brow. It's not locked. It's not? Sweet, said Noah. He gazed at Andre. So do you want to wait down here? It's totally fine if you do. Andre frowned, shoving his hands in the front pockets of his shorts. No, man. I'm in. Noah smiled, relieved. Okay, good. I wouldn't want you to miss this. He meant it. This would be epic. Andre nodded, and by the look on his face, Noah was sure Andre didn't want to miss it either. Inside, it was much darker than out in the sunshine, and the air felt cooler. A cast-iron spiral staircase, painted in black with a metal hand railing on both sides, wound its way up the tower as far as the eye could see. Looks perfectly safe, Noah said. I guess you could say that, Andre said, not sounding convinced. They started up the stairs with Noah at the lead. Cooper was next, in front of Oakley, and Andre brought up the rear. Noah kept his hands on the railing and his eyes on his feet, and soon he came to a vacant space in the stairs. Wouldn't want to step in there. Look out right here, guys, he called, motioning with his foot. A missing step. He stopped and picked up the dog, lifting him over it so there was no chance he'd slip and fall. The others stepped over it carefully as they reached it, but a few seconds later, Noah heard the sound of sneakers hitting hard against the metal. He turned around to see Oakley grasping at the rail, her knees on the stairs. Ouch! She stood up and spun around. I'm going as fast as I can, Andre. You don't need to push me. Noah's brow shot up. I didn't push you. Andre's voice was defiant. Why would I push you? Oakley straightened her shoulders, her tone gruff. Well, someone did. I didn't just fall over for no reason. I saw you trip, Andre said. That was because you pushed me. But I didn't. Guys, Noah said. Oakley, Andre would never push you on purpose. You know that. Maybe he tripped first and didn't realize he fell into you. Thank you for the vote of confidence, Noah, but I didn't trip either, Andre said. I swear. Oakley huffed, still staring at Andre. Okay, fine. Maybe it was my imagination, but it sure felt like someone pushed me from behind. Sorry, she said, huffing. Noah's brow was tight. Well, are you okay, Oak? She was quiet for a moment and then finally spoke. I'll live, she said, turning around to face up the stairs again. She'd kept a straight face, but then she broke into a grin. Noah laughed at her wordplay, and even Andre grinned. Okay, good. So you want to keep going? I can go the rest of the way on my own if you guys want to head back down and wait for me. There was no way Noah wasn't going all the way to the top now. They'd come too far. No chance, Noah. said Oakley. I'm not going to let you have all the fun. Besides, someone's got to interpret the data up there, if there's anything to be found. Let's go. I'm fine. Noah shot her a wry glance. His little sister was tough. He'd certainly give her that. And she wasn't wrong about being the smart one. He would need her knowledge and her keen talent for Googling information quickly, let alone explaining it, if he wanted to understand what might have been happening at the lighthouse last night. Noah turned around and continued up the rounding stairs. When he glanced over his shoulder, he was glad to see that Andre had slowed down a few steps to give Oakley more space. Still, their whole trip or push mix-up was strange. He shook off the uneasy feeling. In just another minute, or so, they'd reach an indoor deck with windows all around, framed in black metal. It was just below the upper deck, which was the top of the lighthouse. "We made it," said Andre with an air of satisfaction. "Almost," said Noah, bending at the neck and motioning to the deck above. Andre frowned and ignored him. The windows allowed for a 360-degree view outside, although they were dirty and hard to see through after years of neglect. Andre gazed out, and Noah joined him, peering through the glass beside Oakley and Cooper. "Wow, I'll bet this was where they kept watch for the ships out there," Oakley said, wiping away a circle of built up from the inside of the glass so she could see a little better, without having to go outside in bad weather. "Yeah," Andre agreed, and Noah was glad to see they'd already left their misunderstanding behind. "This is pretty amazing. I'm glad we came up here." "Right?" Noah said, holding up his fist to bump it with Andre's. "Told you." Andre snorted and brought his knuckles to meet his friends. Cooper wagged his tail as he paced around the small deck, eagerly looking out the windows with them and panting to catch his breath. Noah suddenly felt a cold breeze flutter across the back of his neck, and he shivered in spite of the warm summer day. That was strange. Even covered in years of condensation and dirt, the glass-paneled windows allowed enough sunlight in that this deck wasn't warmer than anywhere else they'd been inside the lighthouse, and he hadn't shivered earlier. No open breezes should get in here, although he imagined there were cracks in the masonry and probably not much sealant insulating the windows. The place was really old. "Did you guys feel that breeze?" Oakley turned to look at him with a shiver. "Whew, yeah, I just felt it. Cold." Andre's shoulders shot up, and he shook slightly. "Oh yeah, I felt it too." He frowned. "That was weird." It was weird. Where had it come from? Still, Noah wasn't going to let a little wind bother him. "Maybe it has something to do with how high up we are," he suggested. "That might be right," Oakley said, her eyes on the ceiling. "I read there's some kind of hollow ball-shaped thing on top of the lighthouse that allowed the smoke from the oil lamp to vent when it was in use. Maybe the vent works in reverse sometimes and drags the air in." Noah nodded. "Maybe? Why would it make the air feel colder than the other air around us, though?" Andre said. "Doesn't make sense. The air outside is warmer than it is in here." Noah wondered too, but he glanced around, dismissing the thoughts. Enough talk about breezes. There was only a short ladder separating him from the outer top deck. Suddenly, a faint, high-pitched sound echoed through the chamber. Oakley shot a glance in Noah's direction. "What was that?" she whispered. Noah's eyes darted around. He glanced down the stairs, looking for movement of any sort, but nothing was there, although it was fairly dark. "It came from down there, didn't it?" Andre cleared his throat, and his voice came out in half a whisper, too. "Maybe it was just the wind." The noise picked up again. This time, it was a higher-pitched tone, and even eerier. Noah frowned as another breeze drifted through the small gallery. "Oak, do you think that could be the vent on top of the lighthouse making that noise?" I don't know," Oakley said, and he saw her swallow uncomfortably. "Not likely." "That's what I think, too." Andre's face had gone pale. "Not likely at all." The three of them seemed to be holding their breath. "It's probably just more wind then, right?" Noah squared his shoulders. These old towers probably carry noises differently than other kinds of buildings. Neither Andre nor Oakley moved as everyone waited for the sound to return. But at long last, it didn't. Finally, Noah exhaled heavily, and he saw Oakley and Andre do the same. Let's just ignore it, said Noah finally. Ignore it? Asked Oakley, her eyes wide. Yeah, we've come this far. We're not going to let a noisy wind stop us, are we? Andre's head bobbed up and down. I might let it stop me. I think I'm ready to go back down now, Noah. Noah shook his head. The noise had unnerved him, just a little. You know, I think we ought to stick together now, Andre, even though I didn't think so before. Don't you, sis? Oakley looked surprised by his question, but she nodded. Yeah, I think it's probably best. Okay, good. But listen, guys, I'm going to check out the top deck, see if I can find anything, okay? Andre stared at him. Is it really that important to you, dude? I mean, this place is kind of starting to freak me out. Oakley frowned. Me too. Noah studied his friend. Okay, you're right. But don't you guys want to know where that light came from last night? I mean, we're so close. Andre wrinkled up his mouth, and Oakley switched her weight from one foot to the other, crossing her arms in front of her chest. So close to what? Andre said. We don't know if there's anything up there that can tell us anything. Yeah, but we'll never know if we don't check it out. His voice was pleading. Noah would definitely need his sister if he found anything. She'd be the one to understand the mechanics of a structure like this. And if she would go up there, then Andre would too. He could focus on the positives in order to win Oakley over. That usually worked with her. Plus, remember how cool the view was from Mariner's Point yesterday? Don't you guys want to see the view from up there? He pointed. He wasn't sure why, but something was urging him on. Eerie noises or not, if it was one thing he'd never been called, it was a quitter, or a sissy. He had to get closure on this thing, if nothing else. Andre let out a heavy breath again. Fine. Oak and I will stay here while you check it out. Go ahead, but be quick. That was a start. Andre and Noah looked at Oakley to see if she would agree. She gave a quick shrug and then reached down and put Cooper's leash back on him. Good. Noah could be quick, and he was fairly certain they'd want to join him up there once he vetted the place. He glanced around. From this deck, a short metal ladder with only 4 rungs led to a large hatchway. It looked like a door inside the old submarine he and Oakley had once toured, only it was completely round. But it was shut. That must lead outside, right? He asked, already knowing the answer, but wanting to involve her, so she'd take an interest again. To the upper deck? Oakley inhaled deeply, then nodded and let out a breath. Yes, but I wonder if it's locked. Only one way to find out. Noah reached for the ladder. At the top, he pulled on the metal handle. It was heavy and wouldn't budge. He tried pushing instead, and in a few seconds, the door swung open with a loud grating squeaky noise. Take a look at that, he said triumphantly. It's open. Carefully, he stepped outside and suddenly felt a much stronger burst of wind than they'd felt inside or down on the ground. Now that's what you call a breeze, he called down to the others as the wind whipped through his short brown hair. Wow, but he was high up off the ground. This view was even more spectacular than he'd imagined. The deck was surrounded by a black metal railing, and the wind was blowing hard at this height. He approached the railing carefully and gave it a light push. It stood strong, not even swaying slightly. He called down the hatch. It's safe up here if you guys want to join me now. It's amazing. Just be careful. In a few moments, Noah had to disguise his grin as Oakley and Andre climbed the ladder and stepped outside with him. Where's Coop? Noah asked. I hooked his leash to the railing. She motioned to the deck below. Noah looked at the deck's handrail and then through the hatch, down at the dog, who rested contentedly below. Good call. The outer deck, with its sparse railing and 80-foot drop-off, was no place for a curious, rascally dog. Noah inhaled the fresh ocean air, and everyone set eyes on the horizon. A vast expanse of bright blue sky and deep blue sea sparkled before them under the afternoon sun. "You're right. It is amazing," Oakley said. She smiled gratefully, her hair blowing in the wind, and Noah was glad they'd come up too. Andre stared into the distance, admiring the view, then walked over to the large bell hanging from the wall and rang it. "Man, that's loud," he said. It had to be loud because that's how they warned sailors when they were getting too close to the shore. In the fog, that bell probably saved lots of lives. "Just how long did you spend reading about this stuff this morning?" Andre asked, dumbfounded. Oakley grinned slyly. "I watched a scary movie once about an old lighthouse. That's why it stuck with me." After about a minute, Oakley turned around and walked to the other side of the open deck. "Hey, come look," she pointed. "You can see the other side of the island from over here." Andre and Noah followed her and looked. "Wow," they said at the same time, and Oakley laughed. Noah's gaze followed the trees down to the narrow channel of water that flowed between the tiny island and the mainland. Then he allowed his gaze to circle to the left. "Hey, there is a better place to leave a boat. Look over there. Do you see that?" He pointed. Andre looked, squinting in the sun. "Wow, yeah. Okay, so you were right." Oakley nodded. Noah grinned. He could make out a small wooden dock, probably decades old, if not more, that stood on the south side of the island. If they had taken the narrow channel they'd seen, they would have come upon it. Next time, Noah thought, if they ever came back. Noah wandered over to the enormous lantern, encased in glass. "Okay, so look, guys, there is still a lantern here, and it looks like it's in good shape." Oakley joined him and studied it. "You're right, it does. And look, the lens is still here, too. I'm surprised the government didn't take all of this away when they deactivated the lighthouse." Oakley explained how the lens sat on a turntable and rotated on a set of clockwork gears, allowing the beam of light to move in any direction. She told them that a lighthouse keeper had a series of tasks that he or she had to do during the night to keep the light operating, like trimming the candle wicks and making sure the oil didn't run out. "I read it this morning before either of you were even out of bed." She pushed her hair from her face as it blew wildly and straightened her shoulders. "I wouldn't expect anything less of you, Oak," Noah said with admiration. Andre gazed through the glass cage where the lens was held. "Hey guys, look! Is that an old canister of oil?" Oakley stared inside the glass. "Yeah, it looks that way." Noah moved in for a closer look. The container was old and rusting. It appeared to be empty, but it was impossible to tell if there was any oil inside the lamp. "Okay, so now we know that everything that would be needed to create a beam of light from this tower is here, right?" He swallowed and looked at his sister. She nodded faintly. "Well, in theory, yes." They all took a moment to let it sink in. It was good news because it meant they definitely weren't imagining things last night. There was just one major problem with the theory. But who would do that? Come out here and run the lighthouse in the middle of a thunderstorm? Noah furrowed his brows. When there's already a perfectly good, no, a better lighthouse in operation just a few miles north? Andre shook his head. "Right, because the waves would have been huge last night. I don't know, but I don't like it." Oakley snapped a few pictures of the lantern room and the lens, but didn't offer an answer. She only shook her head and shrugged. "Hey, bro," Andre said abruptly. "I think it's time to go now. Something weird's been going on here." He headed for the door and began climbing down the ladder. "I'm out." "Yeah, okay." Noah had confirmed what he'd come for. He was ready to go too. "Message received." Oakley shoved her phone into her backpack and Noah let her go down the ladder ahead of him. He looked around one last time and then went through the hatch, still shocked at the realization that indeed, what they'd seen last night wasn't just a powerful flashlight or even a city searchlight like the ones he sometimes saw back in suburban